बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया तैमूर साहब, आपने इजाज़त दी कि मैं यहाँ पे कुछ लम्हात आपके साथ गुजार सकूँ और अपने कुछ काम को शेयर कर सकूँ जो मैं पढ़ रहा हूँ आजकल। शाह वलीउल्लाह की किताब अलबदूर अल-बाज़िगा, उस पे मैं कुछ अपने जो तबसरा है वो थोड़ा बहुत दे सकूँ। थैंक यू वेरी मच। This talk will be in a mix of English and Urdu, and I'll be primarily using source material which is in Arabic. And thank you all for being here and being a patient audience, I hope, because I will hopefully not take too much of your time, and there will be some time for discussion later. But I will begin with the praise of the universe as it has been made, thanks to the Creator, and this is my way of saying Bismillah. तारीफ़ से मैं शुरू करना चाह रहा था। आज का मौजू जो इस बात पे हमें याद दिलाएगा कि हमारी जगह क्या है, हम इंसानों की जगह क्या है इन द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ द यूनिवर्स दैट इज़ अराउंड अस। ये सवाल है जो मेरे ख़्याल से हमें याद दिलाता है जो बुनियादी एक मसला रहा है इस्लामी फ़िक्र में और मुख्तलिफ़ अफ़कार में कि कदर और जबर का आपस में क्या ताल्लुक़ है, यानी कि व्हाट इज़ द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन प्रीडेस्टिनेशन एंड फ्री विल, व्हाट इज़ ऑलरेडी रिटन इन द स्ट्रक्चर्स ऑफ लाइफ इटसेल्फ, not who has written it, but what has been already written in it. And what is the relationship of human agency or free will in those structures, which is also a way of thinking about how the humanities and social sciences work, because they focus in on this question of structure and agency as well, without the relationship to the divine. So it's a much broader question which covers theology, philosophy, and the social sciences, which is, I think, all of them refer back to Shah Waliullah helps us approach all of them from a perspective which is very Islamic but also very contemporary, I would argue. So it's a perspective which can work for helping us as global thinkers even today, because he was a 18th century global thinker in my view. He wasn't just a Muslim thinker. He was thinking about the progress and the changes in civilization at a whole, in human ways of living and being, both internally as well as externally, both outside our bodies as well as what happens inside our mechanism inside it. So with this introduction, I begin with Shah Waliullah's major thesis, which is a very Quranic thesis, that what is the similarity between human and other animal species. And the big reminder here is nature, nature, nature. That a lot of the structures of experience in our lives, बहुत सी चीज़ें जो हमारे इर्द गिर्द होती हैं और हम से भी होती हैं, वो सारी they're built into what he considers tabiya, nature. And he compares often between humans and other animal species, and arguing, in my first part I will argue that a lot of evidence is available in his Al-Budur Al-Bazigha, his Arabic text, that there is a lot of similarities across human and animal species. So here are some of them that I will refer to, and these are his texts in Arabic, and I'll go along with them in English and Urdu. And please, if there's something unclear, stop me and tell me, isko aap Urdu mein samjhaएं, या explain this in English, so that it's clear, because sometimes my language can be a bit obscure. Not the language of Shah Waliullah, but my language can be a bit obscure. So the first part, Athar lil Aba Shafkat Tabiya wal Ibna Alfa Jibliya Kama Tara fil Ba'im. So this is about generational love. The love between Aba and Shafkat, between the Aba and the Ibna Alfa Jibliya. So this is basically a comparison between humans and animals, that both of them have generational love. This is not a problem, it's clear. The second part is Al-Bahim Aidan la itanfak an aslal rasm. So notice here, Ba'im, creatures, are itanfak an aslal rasm. So there's a comparison between rasm, which is understood as custom, which we can understand as culture. And he's arguing that actually animals act according to rasm, not just according to tabiya, nature. They also act according to rasm. And I thought, oh wow, humans only have rasm, culture. No, animals also have culture. وَيَعْلَمْ بِهِدَايَةً أَنْ الْسُورَ الْمُنْتَبَى فِي زَهْنَهُ. Culture transmits between animals by imitation, because the imprint of imitation happens on their zahnahu, on their brains, on their minds. So they replicate each other and learn from each other culture and practices. So it's not just a human thing, rasam. Altahak aksar al-ashkhas bil ba'im. Here he was criticizing humans, those who act like creatures, because they are made for something perhaps more better, superior, maybe. And that's the question we will ask. What are humans made for? If there's such a big comparison between humans and animals, then what is the difference? Which will be the next part. But here in this part he says, Al-Tahak Aksar, a lot of humans, ashkhas, personalities, act like animals. So he's again arguing here that people can be like animals, and that's stated. Alastu tara al-kawiya min al-fahul yaktana ida min al-inas ala kahar wa ghilbat. And here's a tricky part, which is al-fahul yaktana ida min al-inas ala kahar wa ghilbat. So this is about chivalry, or in other terms anisa. So not chivalry, it is anisa is chastity, being chaste. It's a bit difficult to understand this concept in Shah Waliullah, because being chaste or anis is different to how we may understand it, because he argues that male chastity or male relations to sexuality are built in such a way that when men have many partners, that is considered still chaste. But when women have, which is what we're going to get to here, this example is about al-kahar wal ghilbat. So fahul are stallions, horses. So he argues that men act like stallions, horses, who do their chastity by keeping in check through kahar and ghilbat female species of the horse. So he's saying men, when do the same thing, are considered chaste also. So again, a comparison between men and women here, men and animals, male humans and male horses, right? So he's arguing that they both are similar. Last point, second last point, وَذَلِكَ الْهِوَانْ مُطْلَقَ وَالْإِنسَانْ خَاصَ جِبْلَ عَلَى مُحَاكَاةِ جَوَارِحِهِمَا الْأَلُومُهَا وَلَهُمَا فَإِذَا أَخْطَرَ خَاطِرْ يَكُنْ ذَلِكَ شَيْءٍ ثُمَّ إِذَا اتَّزَفَ الْخَاطِرْ. So khatir is what? Khatir is ilm al-khawatir, as you know, is the science of voices. So the science of inner voices. So the sounds that we receive in our head is ilm al-khawatir. It's an established science within the Islamic tradition. So how to make sense of the voices which occur to ourself, and how to manage them, of course, will be important, because every sound, every voice that comes to us saying, eat that, it's very nice, may not be a good thing to follow. So ilm al-khawatir is to manage the voices which occur within inside us.
Inner temptations.
Temptation is a very modern way of saying an action, but it doesn't have an aspect of voice in it. So khawatir or khatir are to do with inner language, यानी कि आवाज़ें जो हमारे अंदर आती हैं, अपनी आवाज़ें ही होती हैं लेकिन आवाज़ें जो अंदर आती हैं. Temptation is a very physical way of describing what happens after we want to act on it, right? So it's a voice, ilm of voice, inner voice. So ilm al-khawatir, he's saying that diyana, honesty, is something which is built in to the system of what makes us human and what makes us animal. So the voice which comes, he's describing the voice which comes inside an animal. So our nervous system, as I would explain to it, nasama or nervous system, the system of our body which when hears the voice and acts on it, cannot lie. Hence the idea of lie detector test, right? Our bodies cannot lie to what we are going inside us, thinking about. And that, he's arguing, happens in animals as well. They are honest systems, not about speech. Speech you can lie, but the nervous system does not lie. And animal nervous systems also do not lie. Again, a comparison. So the arguments here are made are generational love, creatures of custom or culture, a drive to reproduce incessantly, that's built into human animal life. Desire to, not drive to reproduce, to spread as much of our genes as possible. It's built into how we are humans and animals. And an honest nervous system. So that's quite a huge spectrum of similarity already. But what are the differences then? Again, he has a very empirical view on the differences. The big symbol, the big message is household, manzil. Now household is not house. He calls in one place, house is not walls, chat, shelter and doors. No, house is a concept, household, which makes human societies different to animal societies. And this is what he is going to explain now. Azdahum bil farz balagha ala kital wa fisad. So the main concept which I will remind you about the difference between humans and animals is about sexual relations. It is about how women, human females, do not practice culturally across the board, irrespective of which human society, do not practice polyandry. Polyandry means many men. So it is women who differentiate, human women differentiate human species from animal species. Because human men have a desire to reproduce with many women across the cultures. And he says this is known. What humans do is create the institution of marriage in order to control sexual relations between one woman and enforcing it culturally to be with a man who can have many partners in some cultures. But every culture supposedly creates the institution of some sort of institution of marriage where a woman differentiates herself and her society to animal societies. Interesting point. A lot of moderns will say this is a bit not women friendly, but this is not about feminism. This is about an empirical understanding of how human societies work.
Or work
at that point. But even today's anthropology, which studies human sexual relations across cultures, has come up with, out of the thousands of societies that anthropologists have studied, there's a handful, within a handful, which do not have polyandry taboo. So the major societies we know, from India, China, to South America, all of the major societies have a polyandry taboo. But there are certain small tribal societies in some parts of the world, a handful of them, which do not have a polyandry taboo. So empirically speaking, he's talking about what can be empirically observed in the world.
Between the human and the animals, the difference is because of society. But I think it's not.
First, ask the question.
It's not society. It is the God has given us the shuhur.
So that is his next slide. So that's the next point. So I'll show you the next slide. Why the difference is because of wahi. So we'll come to that. But let's just make up the point first of what the difference is. Right? You're right. You're exactly right. The shuur, he calls it wahi, which is the inspiration from God. Wahi is not just which is ended or began with prophet relationship with God. Wahi is a constant recognition or constant intimations of the divine in human life, and not just Muslim life. Wahi is definition of wahi according to him is the reminder of God to humans, or the intimation of God to humans, is the technical definition of wahi according to him. Its perfection could be Quran according to Muslims, but let's leave that aside for now. He's talking about the natural science approach to human society for now, right? So let's finish this first. Nizamat salasa zivaj walad wa malaka. So he says there are three nizams which are related to al-manzil, household. Humans create households. Animals don't create households. Humans have the system of zivaj through nikah, marriage, some sort of marriage ritual. Humans have walad, reproduction system, which animals also have, but it's related to zivaj. And humans have malaka, ownership rights, property. But he relates property to the aspect of human life which is related to reproduction, because you want to restrict inheritance to your rightful heirs, and rightful heirs are determined by what comes from your rightful married partner. Property is not disconnected from household. Property is connected to household, and hence to women being the differentiator, human women being differentiators to animal life. لِيَأْتَيْتِ بِالْإِنْتِفَاءِ بِالنَّفْسَهُ بَالْمُعَاوِزَةِ وَيَبْكَى تَأْلُ الْأَزْمَانِ. This is about money. So when there is surplus of exchange relations between humans, they create ta'lul azman, so they create muawiza for paying back, exchange. They create a material like in some places they use shells. But we, the dominant civilization of the world, use gold standard or silver standard in the past. So he says those are the azman, they are fixed values and they're only useful for exchange relations. Again, a very human thing to do with, relates back to excess of exchange relations, and exchange relations only become excess when there's more property. Property will only excess because of the household relation to women. I'm just connecting the dots here, right? He's going more and more complicated in human societies. Ja'ala akuluhum kal maraya yantaba'u fi bazahu sur baz fayandafa al-fal bil tilkal sura wa ilam yatahakkak indahu sir, secret, hamin qabl alumaha. So he says here that, so akuluhum, his reason, is the basis. In the reason of humans, some creator has kept a mirroring aspect such that Surah baz yandafa al-fa'il fil tilka surah wa ilam yantahak. So this is about individuality. The surah which comes to my mind, the image which comes to my mind, and the image which comes to each of your minds about experiencing this room is going to be based on our individual personalities. So he's saying this is what has been kept into the reason of human beings, that they have been born with a capacity of individuality. This is the individual aspect of the image doing naqsh on the brain, on the zehn, on the akal. Min mu'id khariji yahzu ala al-rasam. This is about the creation of law. Again, a very important human institution. There is no law which is cultural law or religious law in animal life. And why does it come about? Because humans have men have a capacity to want to sleep with many women, like animals, males do. So to restrict the male desire to sleep with many women outside of nikah, of marriage, law is determined in human society. So he calls the basis of law as that, to restrict sexual relations. Min mu'id, restricting, khariji yahzu ala al-rasam, is the formation of rasam. Rasam is any custom. It could be religious, it could be secular, it could be anything. But in a human case, the rasam is to do with relations to managing sexual relations. وَمَا ذَلِكَ يَنْدَفَعُونَ إِلَى أَصْلِ الْإِرْتِفَاقَاتِ وَإِخْلَاقِ. Yandafa'una is a very important word in his writing. Yandafa'una is to do with desire, is to do with drive. Now psychoanalysts or psychologists call today what drives us towards something. We were talking about temptation earlier. So the idea of drive, कि हमारे अंदर कुछ ऐसी चीज़ें हैं जो which drive us towards something. So he calls this that humans are made to be driven to irtifaqat and ikhlaq. Irtifaqat have been written about a lot. These are the systems to become more and more interdependent, more and more complex societies, more and more, I would call it universal. So the drive towards universality outside our bodies in society and inside our bodies is called irtifaqat, and inside our bodies is ikhlaq. The other name of ikhlaq in Shah Waliullah's writing is intibaq, which is the desire to reach godhood, to come closer and closer to God, to the universal. So he's written that this is built into being human. To desire for global governance is built into human beings. The desire for reaching global universal person, which is God, is built into the human being, which makes humans different from animals. In ihata bi miqdar az-zaman, measurement of time is built into human beings. Humans measure time and measure space. We have this measuring rod. We want to know all the time कितना लंबा था भाई ये, कितना लंबा जोड़ा बनाना है, वगैरह वगैरह, किस तरह टाइम मेजर करना है. ये सारी चीज़ें इंसानों की स्पेशलिटी हैं, ये हैवानों के पास नहीं है. सो टू मेजर टाइम, इत्तफाक अमूमन नास जमीयन कराहतु लिल कसरत अल रिजाल अल मरात. दिस इज द सेम पॉइंट अबाउट पॉलीएंड्री. कसरत अल रिजाल, many men, for women. This is built into as a structure of most human societies. Do not like karaha, don't feel it offensive if a woman is shared between many men. This is also a human capacity which has been about, all of these points were more or less related to this particular point. So reminder again, money makes humans different from animals. Property, law, custom, law, the drive, sovereign drive I call it, the drive to reach global governance, reach one global leader, उसको हम अपनी ज़ुबान में खिलाफत कहते हैं, लेकिन global drive है towards global management of affairs in this world. World order कह लें, world order, लेकिन उसमें एक drive जो है, it's to find one leadership, a way of taking collective decisions that is built into humans. I call it the sovereign drive. Yeah. So drive to attain power is a selfish act. The sovereign drive is a collective drive of humans to try to make interdependent relations manageable. And he compares that with a desire to reach inner and inner spiritual states. In his Sufi books, in his Sufia, in his Tasawwuf books, the drive to reach God, finding God and closeness to God is the same drive which humans have outside us. It is a sovereign, I call it the sovereign drive. It's my own way of describing this drive outside us and inside us. Sovereign drive. Yani ke it's difficult to translate it into Urdu or Arabic. In Urdu, because if we use the word Khalifa, we have a particular association with it which is Muslim. But he's not talking about Muslim things here only. He's talking about human capacity. Humans have a desire to live in complex relations, and humans have a desire to have an order in which decision making is made in such a way which is managing those interdependent relations. Humans have this desire. And Khilafat is just a form of reaching this global order. Today it can be called something else. We know it's not called Khilafat today. This drive as it's manifested today is called something other things. So that's what makes us different. We're not too many slides left, so I won't bore you too much, but there's just a few more slides left. So why is this difference there in humans and animals? It's an important question, right? My father, who's sitting here, Kamar Aziz, he asked this question earlier. What makes us different is because we have the shaur, which has been given by God to make us different. He calls it ahwa. Fi ahwa ilayhi astardad khal al-jama fi ta'zif muavinat wa irtabat wa tadakhil uruj yatawakku lahuma ka'annaha al-ghaya allati wajda laha. So he calls it the divine inspiration. Wahi is the same word used for Nabis and Rasuls, but he uses it for describing how God inspires all human beings to become different to animals. So the inspiration from God to become human is Wahi technically speaking. And the perfection of that message of God to humans is in Muslim terms understood as the Quran. Right? So this is what makes the difference between humans and animals. What? Revelation, Wahi. The connector between humans and humans and God is Wahi. But how much is this difference between animals and humans? I was asking this question of the book. How much is the difference? Why, if animals are also inspired, then how much is the difference of inspiration to animals compared to humans? If, for example, if they didn't have the Quran as a perfect Wahi, how much would be the difference? So the difference is, without a direct revelation like the Quran in place, the difference, according to Shah Waliullah, is set, is fixed. It's fixed in miqdar, in quantity. Zada alayhi bi qadr ma'loom. It's fixed according to a known quantity. The difference between animals and humans, and how much humans can excel based on their very animal nature, is fixed in their body system. They can't transcend certain things which are nature to them, which they share with animals. We can't start jumping around like a bird. It's fixed into our nature as humans to only reach certain limits of our excellence. So that's fixed by God. Fi kuza saghir, which is kuza saghir, the small container, min akal al-nasama, in the akal al-nasama, the small container of the, what I call akal nasama, is this wise system which governs us, which I call in today's words the central nervous system. Sorry to say that it's a very technical medical word, but he's writing a lot of times for tabibs, so they would make sense of this. That's the central nervous system which has a wisdom of its own, which is governing human life, internal human life. That is the kuza saghir, is this in this small container. غير التخليط سوى إهمال التفصيل. It's like except sawa, except. So sawa is except. You cannot transcend humanly possible your limited created being of your nervous system except ihmal al-tafsil, which is that ijmal al-tafsil, which is that the relationship between an abstract to a text. It's a very literary way of describing it. Basically an abstract क्या होता है? एक summary होती है of an elaboration, तफसील. तो उससे ज़्यादा आप exceed नहीं कर सकते. You can't exceed, एक abstract of a text cannot exceed its तफसील. उतना ही फ़र्क है कि उससे ज़्यादा you can't exceed the nature that you have been born with, and it's यानी कि जितना हम expand कर सकते हैं human embodied being को, और जो लिखा हुआ है हमारे nature में, उससे ज़्यादा हम exceed नहीं कर सकते. कुछ लोग, कुछ कबायली लोग जो हैं वो कम exceed करते हैं, कुछ modern लोग जो हैं साइंस की बुनियाद पे ज़्यादा करते हैं, लेकिन उस लिमिट को नहीं क्रॉस कर सकते जिसमें हम बनाए गए हैं सारे. ये मतलब है, मोटी मोटी लफ्ज़ों में ये मतलब है. तो ह्यूमन एजेंसी कहाँ है इस सारे चक्कर में? जबर का, यानी कि कदर और जबर का जो मसला है कि अगर जो सब कुछ नेचर में लिखा हुआ है तो वेयर इज ह्यूमन देन? व्हाट अबाउट इरादा? व्हाट अबाउट कल्ब? हाउ डू वी एक्ट? हाउ एम आई मी? हाउ एम आई डिफरेंट टू एनिमल्स? हाउ एम आई डिफरेंट टू माई फादर, टू माई चिल्ड्रन? हाउ डू आई एक्ट? तो ये मेरा सवाल था शाह वलीउल्लाह से कि भाई मैं कहाँ हूँ अगर ये सारा लिखा हुआ है. तो शाह वलीउल्लाह समझाते हैं, और ये इसमें क्लियर आंसर्स नहीं मिले मुझे, लेकिन मैं कोशिश की है समझने की कि वमिन अल मदीना मा यकुनु फीही सय्यद मता यहदीहिम इला अल इल्म वल रुश्द. एक तरह से शाह वलीउल्लाह इससे समझाते हैं कि भाई देखो, when you collect together humanity in civilization, in culture, in cities, तो एक मदीना जो होता है, सिटी, यकूनु फीही सैयद, वो एक कलेक्टिव लीडर इलेक्ट करता है या सिलेक्ट करता है. बट वो लीडर जो है इज गाइडेड बाय इल्म एंड रुश्द, यानी कि डायरेक्टेड एंड नॉलेज जो उसको मिलता है वो कलेक्टिव से मिलता है. तो एक ये समझने की तरीका है कि भाई देखें, कलेक्टिव ह्यूमंस जो हैं उनमें यानी कि शहर का एक निज़ाम जो है वो सेंट्रल नर्वस सिस्टम जो है ना जिस्म का, उससे तशबीह दे रहे हैं. यानी कि शहर का निज़ाम नस्समा जो जिसको कहा है शाह वलीउल्लाह ने, दैट इज सिमिलर टू द नर्वस सिस्टम ऑफ द सिटी. सिटी भी उसी तरह ऑपरेट करती है जिस तरह एक कॉम्प्लेक्स सिटी लाहौर की तरह, विच ऑपरेट्स द वे कॉम्प्लेक्स निज़ाम हमारे जिस्म के अंदर जो चल रहा है, द वे इट ऑपरेट्स. फसकुनत अर्द अल्लाह ताला, यानी इधर ये कह रहे हैं कि भाई पीस ऑन अर्थ, अल्लाह की ज़मीन पे पीस हो. वो किस तरह आएगा? फ़ज़ालिका मर्ज़ल अर्द इला अन यनकशफ. इधर शाह वलीउल्लाह ये कहते हैं कि भाई इंसानों में एक कैपेसिटी है टू वांट द डिज़ायर टू लिव इन पीस, द डिज़ायर टू कोऑपरेट. कोऑपरेशन के बगैर शादी नहीं चल सकती. There is no marriage without cooperation. And that is a very human trait, to cooperate, not just to raise children, जो animals भी करते हैं, but to cooperate in collective decision making. And that cooperation aspect is different to animal world. Animal world is defined according to him constantly at war with itself. A violence around sexuality and a competition around sexuality determines animal life and reproductive life in animals. Humans में cooperation है. Cooperation सिर्फ household में नहीं है. It's not just restricted to the household. Cooperation extends to the city as well. So the aspect of the city which defines the city as a city is that it's not at civil war with itself. Otherwise it would break up into many portions. A city works together because of human cooperation. So that's another hint कि भाई ये क्या हो रहा है कि अगर consciousness में collective conscious, मेरा जो बड़ा सवाल वो ये है कि ये collective will के बारे में बातें हो रही हैं. अभी भी मेरे बारे में बात नहीं हो रही. इस collective will में मैं कहाँ हूँ, क्योंकि शायद वो मैं हूँ ही नहीं. लेकिन ये अब देखते हैं कि क्या मैं हूँ भी या नहीं हूँ. कलेक्टिव विल में और नेचर में मैं कहाँ हूँ, ये मेरा सवाल है शाह वलीउल्लाह से. बट आई डोंट नो इफ देयर इज अ क्लियर आंसर फॉर दिस. आई एम लुकिंग फॉर दिस आंसर. यंतबा फी लोह इल्मुहु सूरत इलैहि तजल्लु अनल इंतबा फी लोह गैर बनी आदम. यानी कि सूरत जो बनती है ऑफ ह्यूमंस ऑन, ये पहले हम पॉइंट कवर कर चुके हैं कि वो सूरत जो हमारे अंदर बनती है वो हर बनी आदम से मुख्तलिफ होती है. यानी कि वो जो इमेज हमारे जहन में बनती है और एक्सपीरियंसिंग समथिंग वो मुख्तलिफ होती है हर शख्स की. मुत्तसिल फ़ी नफ्सहु सारा फ़िल बदन अल कसीफ़ युहमिल अल कुवा व अल अफ़ल. मुत्तसिल फ़ी नफ्सहु सारा फ़िल बदन. सो ये डेफिनेशन है नसमा की, यानी कि नर्वस सिस्टम में सारा फिल बदन और अल-कसीफ सारा नफ्सुहु सारा फिल बदन अल-कसीफ, यानी कि इंटरकनेक्टेड एक चीज़ है. नसमा जो है वो इंटरकनेक्टेड है, एक दूसरे के साथ जुड़े हुए हैं ऑर्गन्स, और वो पूरे बदन में फैली हुई है. ऐसी सटल बॉडी है, ऐसी लतीफ़ जिस्म है जो पूरे जिस्म में फैली हुई है. उसको वो कहते भी हैं लतीफ़ बदन लतफ़ कहते हैं शाह वलीउल्लाह कि जो सेंट्रल नर्वस सिस्टम है, जो निज़ाम है अंदर का, उसको वो सटल बॉडी कहते हैं. जी
नॉर्मली नस्मा से तो मुराद शायद वो सटल बॉडी होती है.
सटल बॉडी,
नॉन
फिजिकल. तो उसको मैं उसको ये समझता हूँ कि वो इट कैन बी, क्योंकि मेरे मुताबिक सेंट्रल नर्वस सिस्टम जो है वो हालांकि आज समझा जाता है एक बहुत फिक्स्ड और फिज़िकल चीज़ है, वो उतना ही सटल और उतना ही एब्स्ट्रैक्ट किस्म का एक आइडिया है जो जिसके तहत मेडिकल साइंस चल रही है. मेडिकल साइंस इज़ वेरी समटाइम्स एब्स्ट्रैक्ट, एंड आई विल शो यू एन एग्जांपल ऑफ दैट नाउ, कि how abstract this idea of a central nervous system is. There's no place where you can locate a central nervous system. It's an idea. And I'll show you visually a bit about that. Tashba Nizam al-Madina, ये हो गया कलब al-इरादा. तो ये हो गया, यानी कि मैं अगर दिखा दूँ आपको इसकी एक मिसाल.
And it controls every single function in your entire body. In fact, your central nervous system is so important that it's the only body part that is totally encased in bone for its protection.
ये एक तस्वीर है, उन्होंने एक तस्वीर बनाने की कोशिश की है सेंट्रल नर्वस सिस्टम की. शाह वलीउल्लाह तस्वीर बना रहे हैं लफ्ज़ों के साथ. तो हिकमत में हकीमों का जो प्रोफेशन है उसमें जो समझाई जाती है चीज़, द वे इट्स एक्सप्लेन्ड इज़ बाय मेकिंग मेंटल इमेजेस, कि इमेजिन के जिस्म के अंदर क्या कुछ हो रहा है. और उसकी मैं मिसाल एक जल्द से आपको एक छोटी सी मिसाल में देना चाहता हूँ. इन द राइटिंग ऑफ अ ट्रांसलेटर फ्राम द ट्रांसलेटर इज़ जलबानी इन 1922. and he's translated this Al-Budur Al-Bazigha, which I have been also consulting. And इसमें एक मिसाल देता हूँ आपको. It's in English. So this is a misal of how the body works in relation to love. ठीक है जी. तो आप खाना खाते हैं, सही है, उधर से बात शुरू होती है कि आप खाना खाते हैं तो the semen is mixed up in abundance with the army of the constitution, यानी कि तबीयत की आर्मी, ठीक है. And as such desire as outflow for itself. The secret thoughts of the brain feel the need of constitution towards the outflow. The brain then follows the order of the secret thoughts and accordingly sends the spies, यानी कि ये जो neurons, in search of the outflow suitable to the constitution, to the tabiyat. Subsequently, when the outflow is found, the brain suggests to the heart to love it and seek its nearness. If the heart is despotic in its order, अब despotic quality उन्होंने रख दी है heart की, यानी कि जैसा ruler despotic होता है, वो अब image बना रहे हैं, उनके पास technology नहीं है, उनके पास social knowledge है, जो लोगों के पास भी है, तो उस social knowledge से वो image बना रहे हैं कि जिस्म के अंदर क्या कुछ हो रहा है, spies, constitution, तबीयत यानी कि, और limbs को उन्होंने मिसाल दी है as armies. सही है ना. मैं समझा रहा हूँ आपको कि ये बात समझने की कोशिश करें कि शाह वलीउल्लाह जो हैं वो he is making a picture to hikmat, to people of hakims and to other knowledgeable people, that he is drawing a picture like this. He is trying to explain कि अंदर क्या हो रहा है जो आपको नज़र नहीं आ रहा, जो खफी है, जो hidden है, उसमें क्या कुछ होता है. Say, I'll just complete this sentence here. If the heart is despotic in its order, it looks into the consequences of the affairs and constrains itself, and is not inclined to accept the advice of the brain. It rather issues a general order for the search of an outflow without obeying the advice of the brain, which had given it such a suggestion. But if the heart is weak, it inclines towards it, follows it, and issues orders to the armies of the constitution saying, I love such and such one, so you also love it and submit to it. Point ये है कि ये पूरी जो conversation है हिकमत में जो conversation का बताया जाता है मामला, दिल के बीच में, जिगर के बीच में, sexual organs के बीच में और दिमाग के बीच में, और दिल की जगह sovereign decision maker की बताई जाती है. इस पूरे निज़ाम में, इस पूरे सिस्टम में दिल की जगह वो है जो आज के इस्तिलाह में आप कह सकते हैं ब्रेन की है. हिकमत में दिल उस ऑर्गन को कहते हैं जो आज की मेडिकल साइंस में उसको ब्रेन समझा जाता है, जो सेंट्रल डिसीजन मेकर है अकॉर्डिंग टू मेडिकल साइंस.
इरादे ट्रेडिशनली वो फिर इरादे की सीट नहीं होती, दिल
इज ए सीट ऑफ इरादा.
तो ब्रेन में ही
वहाँ भी है
इरादा.
अब ये इंटरेस्टिंग चीज़ है कि जो
ना जाए ब्रेन से सिग्नल आएगा दिल में, तो दिल काम करेगा ना.
नहीं अब ये बहुत आपने एक मॉडर्निस्ट ज़ुबान में आपने बात की है. अब हिकमत की ज़ुबान समझने की कोशिश, देखिए हिकमत, एक चीज़ को समझने की कोशिश करें कि हिकमत के पास वो दूरबीनी या नज़दीक बीनी नहीं है, टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं है टू अंडरस्टैंड हाउ द बॉडी एक्चुअली वर्क्स. इट्स बेस्ड अ लॉट ऑन insights, meditation, operation. A lot of techniques are used to make sense कि body चलती किस तरह है बग़ैर कैमरों के. उनके पास तो कैमरे नहीं थे ना आज जो हमारे पास हैं, तो उनकी ज़ुबान में अगर हम समझने की कोशिश करें कि वो क्या कहना चाह रहे हैं, तो वो ये कह रहे हैं कि भाई जो जगह डिसीजन जो जगह डिसीजन लेती है उसको वो दिल का लफ्ज़ दिल उस ऑर्गन को कह रहे हैं जो इरादे की सीट है. ऐसा ही है. अब मैं अगर आखिर में जो बड़ा मैसेज है वो शाह वलीउल्लाह का, वो ये है कि देखिए ये मैंने सारी बातें आपको समझा तो दी हैं कि ये हो रहा क्या है, निज़ाम क्या है. निज़ाम हस्ती नहीं, निज़ाम बदन और नस्मा क्या है. और उसका ताल्लुक क्या है हैवानों की ज़िंदगी के साथ, सिमिलैरिटीज़ क्या हैं, डिफरेंसेस क्या हैं। ये शाह वलीउल्लाह ने पेंटिंग ही इज़ अ पेंटर, उन्हें पेंटिंग एक पेंट कर दी है कि हो क्या रहा है। फिर उनने अपनी बात भी ज़ाहिर करनी थी कदर की, जो उनने कर दी कि भाई देखें कदर का मामला जो है वो ये है कि कद हफ्तु बिही अल इल्लल मिन फोकिही व तहतिही बहीस वजब वजूबा लिबर लहू दूना अन यूजद, यानी कि कॉज एंड इफेक्ट से ज़्यादा आप आगे नहीं जा सकते। हर एक के पीछे एक कॉज है, हर एक्शन के पीछे एक कॉज है। अरस्तु वाली बात उनने कर दी कि देखें प्राइम मूवर प्रॉबेबली होगा इवेंचुअली, क्योंकि हर जो चीज़ आपके सामने हो रही है उसके पीछे कोई ना कोई कॉजेज़ हैं। कॉजेज़ यानी कि वजब वजूबू हैं, वजब है, किसी ना किसी चीज़ के पीछे कोई कॉज है जो आपके सामने चीज़ नमूदार होती है दुनिया में, खुदा की दुनिया में जो चीज़ नमूदार होती है उसके पीछे कोई ना कोई कॉजेज़ होंगे, और माँ सिवा उस चीज़ के जो जहाँ और कोई ऐसी चीज़ हो नहीं सकती जिसके पीछे कॉज ना हो, ये भी उन्होंने कह दिया। फिर ये कहते हैं कि ला अन हुनक यसम्मता अल क़दर जबरन अलैहि व मुकरहा लहा, यानी कि यसम्मता अल क़दर, यानी कि उन्होंने ये कह रहे हैं कि कदर एनवेलप करती है, यानी कि इनकम्पस करती है उन सारी चीज़ों को, उस शख्स को भी जो कदर के ख़िलाफ़ जाना चाहता है। अभी आखिरी सेंटेंस पे मैं एंड करूँगा कि जो इंटरेस्टिंग पॉइंट है जिस पे वी कैन थिंक अबाउट दिस अ बिट मोर एंड डिस्कस इट अ बिट मोर, दैट where the last sentence that he ends this section, he says, there might be a man who dares to oppose the destiny, qadar, and is of the opinion that the requital of good and evil for man is a sort of an injustice. Injustice की वजह से he wants to oppose destiny. शाह वलीउल्लाह का ये ओपिनियन है कि we on our own part state that men, यानी कि इंसान, their actions and the requital resulting from them are all included in the destiny. यानी कि आप जब खिलाफ भी जाना चाहें किसी चीज़ के जो आपको नाइंसाफ़ी लग रही है, इनजस्ट लग रही है, दैट इज़ ऑल्सो रिटन इन टू द नेचर, इन तबीया, फिक्स्ड ऑर्डर, फिक्स मकदार से हम उसको, हम अनजस्ट, हम इंसाफ तहरीक भी नहीं चला सकते बियॉन्ड ए लिमिट रिटन बाय मकदार, रिटन बाय गॉड इन डेस्टिनी। सो कदर से हम एक्सीड इनजस्टिस के खिलाफ भी नहीं जा सकते। दैट्स ऑल्सो रिटन इन अकॉर्डिंग टू शाह वलीउल्लाह, नॉट दैट